Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Thank you for making the time. We have here members of the media from the local press, international correspondents, as well as members of the press from across the continent. We will also be taking questions from members of the press not located here who have sent in their questions. With your permission, we will go straight to questions. I remind members of the press, when you're asking a question, please introduce yourself as well as your media house and keep it to one question. The first question will go to Kagame.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Jean-Pierre Kagame nkorera RBA. Nyakubahwa Perezida, hirya no hino atari mu Rwanda gusa haravuga ikibazo kizamuka ry'ibiciro byatewe n'ibibazo isi yanyuzemo. Hari ingamba u Rwanda rwagiye rufata, ariko ikibazo nabazaga ni ubuhe buryo bwihariye bugiye gukorwa kugira ngo iki kibazo kidahungabanya iterambere ry'imibereho myiza mwifuriza abaturage. Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika.
Nk'uko waramaze no kubivuga, ikibazo aho gituruka cyane cyane ku izamuka ry'ibiciro ku isoko n'ahandi, yaturuka ku bintu bimwe bitandukanye bituruka hanze y'igihugu kubera ibiriho biba ku isi, haba kure haba hafi, bigira ingaruka hirya no hino, bitugiraho ingaruka natwe. Ariko ngira ngo umuntu yavuga ko igihugu cyacu ubundi ibijyanye n'ubukungu muri rusange, imibereho ishingiye kuri byo, yasaga naho byari bimaze kumenyera yagendaga neza. Icyo dukora rero ni uguhera uko ibintu byagendaga neza, noneho tugashaka uburyo ibyo bimwe bitari mu maboko yacu twahangana nabyo. Ikipe irebana n'iby'ubukungu muri rusange y'igihugu cyacu yagiye ishyiraho uburyo, ari ugushyiraho uburyo bw'imfashanyo bishobora gufasha mu kugabanya ibyo biciro, ariko biturutse mu bundi buryo bwakozwe, tuvuge kugira ngo nk'ibiciro bya peteroli uko bimeze ubundi bitewe n'izamuka ry'ibiciro byakabaye bikomeza bizamuka bijya hejuru, ariko icyo gihe leta ifite uburyo yabyize neza, ishyiramo amafaranga kugira ngo cya kinyuranyo uko igiciro cyari kimeze n'uko cyazamutse bitewe n'ibyo bibazo twavugaga, gishobore kutabaho bitewe n'icyo leta yashyize muri sisitemu ubwayo. Urebye rero nka subsidies zigenda zikorwa ziba zigamije kugira ngo byunganire igihugu, byunganire abaturage kuri ibyo byo gutuma ibiciro bitakomeza kuzamuka. N'ubundi buryo rero na Central Bank ubwayo, banki nkuru y'igihugu, nayo ifite uko ikora imibare yayo ku kiguzi cy'amafaranga, niba ariko nabyita, bifite nabyo uko byigwa bigakorwa kugira ngo ibiciro bidakomeza kuzamuka, ndetse bishobora no kongera kumanuka nanone bitwara igihe ntabwo bibaho uyu munsi umunsi umwe gusa uko byakozwe ndibwira rero ko ibintu biza gusubira mu buryo ariko bitwara igihe.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Zimbabwe.
Afternoon, Your Excellency. My name is Love Moma Taire. I'm from Zimbabwe, Harare. I'm the group political editor for Zim Papers. First, thank you so much for inviting me to the Umshikrano. It was my first time to be here, and I was quite impressed with what I witnessed there. However, I'm quite disturbed that while most of the African media took the event as a very important event, there was some kind of a downplay from the Western media in how it took the initiative. Can you comment on that, why the Western media continues to downplay homegrown initiatives that are meant to bring citizens together? Thank you.
Well, thank you, but that has a history, it has a context, it is something that has not happened overnight, that different countries, including Rwanda, get some narratives are formed about us, not so much even to encourage us to do better, but to depict situations as bad forever and even worse with the time. Sometimes it is deliberate. Again, I said it has a context, has a history, why the West is supposed to determine everything according to them. That happens in Africa. They are supposed to decide for people how they should be defined, what they should be doing, how they should not, or what they should not be doing. There is this, I don't know, maybe prejudice. I don't understand the rationale of it. I can only understand why people do it. It's a tool of control. It's a tool of to avoid, people encroaching on your status. The West is up there, according to them. Nobody should be really approaching that position. They should stay where they want people to be, so that they can easily always control the people, the resources, and determine. You have heard so much about global order. So global order is really about that. The global order is defined by people, and among other things, that is one of them, of shaping the global order. Global order has people who create that and who therefore must maintain that global order. But with time and with certain realities, people challenge that notion that some parts of the world must control the whole world without a question. Other big powers challenge that in a big way. Small ones also have their way of challenging that, especially departing from trying to define ourselves, not so much being defined by others. So with the Mushichirano, we do it not to impress anyone, first of all. Like other initiatives, we have done that, we've thought about doing that because we think it will improve us, whether politically, economically, socially. It's something that improves society as far as we are concerned. I mean, people having these political innovations and allowing ideas to float or to be challenged, but ultimately coming out with something that works for people shouldn't be a bad thing in any way, in my view. It helps make you who you want to be, or improving who you are, instead of going the route of following the dictates of other people. We would rather follow where your heart and mind should be taking you. This is something we've lived, we know it, we know what challenges are in even dealing with that. It constitutes a lot of challenges inevitably. But you stay the course. You stay the course and you do what you think is important, is good for you. And then you keep fighting these battles to put you off course. So that Mushichirano you are talking about, and as you saw, the people there, the young, the old, from different walks of life, people with different backgrounds, I think really constitutes a very significant sample of representation of our society. And why not? Why don't we sit down and talk about what we need to do that can improve us? So that's what we do, irrespective of whoever doesn't like it or likes it. We can live with those even when they don't like it.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Congo.
Chanel Mourangon, Télé Congo, Congo Brazzaville.
Just a moment, maybe I need to use the translation. Go ahead.
Alors, merci de nous avoir accueillis ici au Rwanda. Merci pour l'invitation et on a aimé vraiment être dans ce beau pays. Ma première question concerne la visite du président Macron en Afrique, qui a entamé une visite où il va séjourner à Brazzaville, Luanda et Kinshasa, sûrement avec le président Sassou, avec le président Tshisekedi, le président Lorenzo. Ils vont aborder la question sur la crise entre le Rwanda et la RDC. Alors, qu'en est-il du dialogue? Où en sommes-nous sur les pourparlers entre le Rwanda et la RDC? Ça, c'est ma première préoccupation. La deuxième, c'est sur la coopération entre le Congo et le Rwanda. Comment se porte cette coopération? Est-ce que vous envisagez d'aller un peu plus loin que ce que les commissions mixtes ont déjà arrêté comme accord? Merci.
Right. First of all, I think the President of France, President Macron, who will be in the region, is one of a number of countries and people who have been trying to help in resolving this problem. In our region, people talk about Eastern Congo. Eastern Congo is not a country on its own. It's actually Congo. I think there's nothing like, in my view, there's nothing like Eastern Congo problem. Maybe you want to be specific in a narrow sense about where, but it is actually Congo's problem. It's also a regional problem, meaning it affects even neighbors. I can't say how we are affected. Let's say if we are referring to Rwanda, you wouldn't say Northern Rwanda problem, because Northern Rwanda is neighboring with the Eastern Congo, and the spillovers of problems mainly come to the north of our country. That doesn't make it a Northern Rwanda problem. No, it makes Rwanda's problem. So I want us to understand that Eastern Congo problem is Congo's problem. It should stop being Eastern Congo problem, Eastern Congo problem. No, it's the Congo's problem. That's one. Number two, again, this problem has a very long history in terms of the cause of that. But it also has a long history of how it has been mismanaged from the beginning. That's why it is there for the last 20-something years. And if you look at the attention that has been paid to this so-called Eastern Congo problem, it's so much so that one would think we should have got a solution to this problem. So it's been there for long. It has been mismanaged for very long. And I think it has a relationship also with the first thing I corrected, that it can't just keep being seen as Eastern Congo problem. It's a Congo problem, only based, this particular one, based in Eastern Congo. So your important question, I'm not sure. People have discussed this problem in all kinds of settings. The AU summit, we discussed it. We discussed it in Kenya. We discussed it in Angola. We have discussed it around the General Assembly in New York. We have discussed it almost everywhere, and people, there are other well-wishers there who want to help in this problem. The other day we were supposed to go and meet in Qatar over the same problem. That didn't happen, but maybe it is going to happen in the near future. So everywhere we are talking about this problem. So the importance of your question therefore lies in this fact that how can any problem, but particularly this one, continue to be discussed, just discussed, and keep people taking. We have communiques, we have all kinds of statements, but that's why it has stayed for all these years. Then on top of that, we remember the background. We have under global peacekeeping, we have had thousands, tens of thousands of troops called peacekeepers in Congo for this time. They are supposed to keep something, to resolve something, keep peace, resolve the underlying issues for the lack of peace. Again, we are there for these years of meaning decades, still we see no problem, no solution. So surely if anyone stepped back a little bit and wanted to make sense of what is happening, somebody should realize that something is terribly wrong. And we might be addressing the wrong problem, or we are providing the wrong solution to the problem we know. Otherwise, there is no other explanation how things can continue like this forever. Now, people who want shortcuts, but even then, shortcut is supposed to reduce the time you address something. But people who want shortcuts blame it all on Rwanda. This is now the easiest, but even then, I have not found how it becomes a shortcut, because we are still there with the problem. Maybe if we had blamed Rwanda, as even if wrongly, and got a solution, okay, we can live with that. We can say, okay, Rwanda was blamed for a problem that is not theirs, and they incurred so much in terms of cost and this and that. But at least we found a solution. So, but now it has only turned out to be an additional problem, for which you're not going to find a solution. As if the first problem is not bad enough, we add another problem, which is blaming it all on the wrong party altogether. So, is it just a matter of meetings that even if it were for that, we have not had a few meetings? Is it we've run short of people to blame? I don't think that is even giving us a solution. So I think people need to come back to our senses and see how, because I try to summarize what I think is the origin or why we keep going back and forth and not finding. I should say it originates with the history between our two countries, Rwanda and DRC. We shared the colonial history because we were all governed by Belgians at that time, DRC, Rwanda, and Burundi. Then whatever happened, in fact, we find, like it has happened in many other countries. I've been raising this question, if there is any country in Africa that does not have people on one side of the border similar or related to people on the other side of the border of the country that are neighboring each other. I don't think there is any. So this famous, I mean, I'm sure here, by the time we are done with this press conference, the story will be M23 has become something like a scarecrow. It's supposed to dramatize the story or, scare people that we have something terrible here, and that's what is. So I'm sure that's what is going to happen from here. M23 is the beginning and the end of the problem. But that's not true. The so-called M23 is a product of a lot of things mismanaged, mishandled, starting even in those days. I talked of colonial times, how these people associated with Rwanda happened to be in Congo. If, to be honest, I probably wasn't around when it happened. That was way before I was born. So how can I be responsible for the problem? How can I be the cause of the problem? Of course, for all of you, I'm sure you were born yesterday. I'm sure there is even part of the story you don't know, you've never come across. So that is one. How can Rwanda be blamed for the refugees we have here, who have been here for 20 years, over from Congo, associated with the people in M23? M23 problem which started in 2012, and where they used some military force to try and resolve the problem. The M23 people, some fled to Uganda, a neighboring Congo as well. Others fled here. We have them here in the camps. So when that was done and finished, there had been agreements of the next steps to resolve that problem from 2012. These agreements were all reneged on until recently, when this fighting flared up, started again of the same groups. But in Congo, in Eastern Congo, there are over 120 armed groups, of which M23 is only one of them. Right? So the 120 armed groups, how were they formed? Certainly, I haven't even heard even those who hate Rwanda, who tell a lot of lies about Rwanda, have not accused Rwanda of having formed those 100 and plus armed groups. So at least even those who wish us everything negative have not accused us of that. They're only accusing us of association with M23. So who formed the other 100 over armed groups, and why? Who explains that? Why don't they talk about that or take care of that? So I would suggest to people that They simply need to look at what needs to be looked at. The root causes of what we are having to deal with. The root causes are clear. I've told you in that history. Even agreements were reached of how to resolve that from 2012. How could they not have been implemented, those agreements? It can't be because of Rwanda. Even if I bring you to the recent events, this fighting that is started a couple of years ago was not started by Rwanda by any means or by anybody. Try to look at, just follow the history of how this recent fighting started. It had no involvement of Rwanda at all. Only that maybe the ones who started it or who wanted it to be there designed it in such a way that they would then blame it on Rwanda. And it's simple how to do that. You just have to distort the history. Because they are saying, no, these are people from Rwanda. These are Rwandans, meaning the M23 and the people we have here as refugees who have been here for over 20 years are all called Rwandans. So they are from Rwanda. So it's like they are sending them back to where they came from the beginning. This is really the story. The story is all of these Rwandans in Congo, it doesn't matter how they went there, they should go back to Rwanda. But what is even more interesting is that while you are sending away these Rwandans and saying they should go to Rwanda, back to Rwanda, it doesn't matter how they got here, these same people are retaining other Rwandans who are FDLR. You have heard of that? So FDLR is actually welcome in the Eastern Congo. But the rest should go back to Rwanda. So that again tells the story. But the way they retain FDLR, the reason they do that is because they think they can build around it for so long. They have been trying to do that. A force that would come and destabilize Rwanda, and I think the president of Congo at one point, it must have escaped from his thoughts. Remember when he said he's going to bring regime change in Rwanda. Of course, I didn't take that seriously. I thought it was a joke. He must have been joking, and he's allowed to make those jokes. It's okay. But it's also something that may be in the minds of some people, they wish for that. But that's a different subject. So, what is simple? Why don't we even look at those old agreements? There are many, by the way, whether they were reached by the former government under President Kabila and others that were reached by the current administration about how to resolve this matter with these same people they are having a problem with. Even if we just started with that alone. And that could be helpful. So the root cause, if there are people here. First of all, if there are people they think are not Rwanda, are not Congolese, they are pretending, okay, those we can identify and put them aside. But how about those that you identify as actual Congolese? What is the reason for not accepting them as they should accept other Congolese? So the whole story now turns into, oh, this is an invasion from Rwanda, they want a piece of Congo. No, but before you come to that, maybe you need to answer these questions I was raising. Of course, we are very conscious of the fact that Rwanda geographically is really small. That's a fact. How it came to that, I'm not even going to talk about it. That Rwanda was dismembered and cut to pieces and left people. I'm not talking about that. I don't need to talk about that. It's not in my mind. But we are where we are. We've been where we are for so long. It's not today that we are thinking of encroaching on somebody else's territory to increase our size and so on. I mean, unless somebody really is just insulting us and thinks we are that foolish in this day and age to be investing in things that are so costly to us that we would be looking for that. I don't think so. This is just diversionary. What is clear is, let's go to the real problem. Let's go to why is this fighting? How did it start? Who started it? Why? Who are these people who are fighting? What do they want? Whether it is M23 or the other groups I told you that are up to or over 120 groups, armed groups. So the mismanagement, the bad governance, cannot just be explained away. You need, and also the rights of people. The rights of people need to be given to them. Always, it's whether it is Eastern Congo or here or anywhere, the moment you think or you have a policy of denying people their rights and persecuting them, you know that when people have nothing to lose, they will fight you. You can blame the ones who you imagine is helping them, you can do whatever you want, but I think history has shown us many things that when you tamper with people's rights for so long and think you are so powerful or have right to do that, the moment it turns on you, it might be too late for you. And then the other stories, you can see they are really looking for all kinds of excuses to run away from the real problem or root causes of that problem. Then the next time it is about minerals. Oh, Rwanda is poor, has no minerals. They are invading our country, they are fighting, supporting M23. They want to steal our minerals. Well, those minerals have been there for so long. I only wonder why they don't even benefit the Congolese, actually. Why? How about the Congolese who are not in Eastern Congo but are so far away from there? Do they really benefit from these minerals? So now you have somebody to accuse for invading your country looking for minerals. Do you know that we have some minerals here? They may be fewer than you find in Congo, but we have some minerals. In fact, the coltan which they talk about, we have a lot of coltan, and it is of a much higher quality than you would find coltan anywhere, including Congo. try and do some research about it, people will tell you the story. It goes up to about 40, even up to 60%, where in Congo it's about 20, 30% for the content of coltan. Investigate, you know the truth. So then gold, we have gold, you know, in the old days when we were fighting war here, somewhere in the northern part, Chumbi, we used it to pick gold, alluvial gold from, there's a place, is it Kivuye or something? We used, Miove. It is Miove. We used to pick gold. People would be in ambush waiting for the enemy, and they find gold, and they and it's I'm not dramatizing anything. So we actually have gold, which is even on the surface in the Miove. Sorry. So I mean, these are all just useless stories to divert people away from the real problem. Then you can turn around and ask MONUSC that has been there for forever. Actually, some of you have been born after it was deployed there, I'm sure, in this group. Yeah, it's true. So they've been there. So what have they been doing, by the way? Why didn't they solve this problem? Why? Only to wait, to turn around and blame it all on Rwanda and say Rwanda has done this. But for a fact, we have said this. This FDLR problem that is in Congo, which everybody has played down and said this and all this, yet there are things to show that they are there. They've been armed, rearmed, and given everything, have had an effect. In 2019, November, a group of FDLR crossed our border in a place called Kinigi, killed people until our military had to intervene and get rid of them. These were FDLR, and they had arms from government or by some groups working on behalf of government. In 2019, again, you can ask, in November, this happened. After that, in the recent days, when this fighting was beginning to take shape between M23 and the government and these other armed groups, FDLR, having been rearmed again, integrated with FARDC, with full knowledge and authority of government and government institutions, whether it was the commanders of FARDC or governors of the provinces or everybody, they knew about it. They attacked again the northern part. They were bombing our territory from Eastern Congo into Rwanda. Again, there is no confusion about this information. It is available to everybody. There are victims. There are things like that. We have communicated directly with the government of Congo. I did communicate directly with the president of Congo on these issues when they were happening. And so this has resulted into, we have had to deploy, we have massively, we have even increased deployment along our border. And what we are supposed to do and will do, whenever it will be necessary, is to make sure nobody crosses again our border to attack our people or uses any territory near us to share Rwanda again without consequences. So this is not a secret. We have said it publicly. So when you turn that into a problem, oh, you know, Rwanda is helping M23, they are in Congo, they are, okay, but you must answer another question. Why would they be doing that? Why would Rwanda be doing that? Why would Rwanda want to go into Congo? Why would Rwanda support M23? Why? If you get those answers, you should also ask yourself, what is FDLR doing in Congo, armed and working with government of Congo? Why? Why are they there? What are they to do? The third issue is, what should Rwanda do? Have FDLR armed once in a while, crossing the border, killing our people, and we should just keep quiet? This is another question that must be answered. The other question is, what has been the presence of MONUSCO and other groups that have gone into Congo to help Congo to pacify this region? What have they been doing all these years? What have they been doing? Associated with FDLR? Or maybe part of the rearming FDLR? Somebody must answer that question. Finally, I want to say this. Just end on what I asked from the beginning. Why would Rwanda, of all countries, want to be part of or the cause of instability in the neighborhood? Why? What would we gain from that? What can anyone gain from having stability next door? If anything, everybody should know we are the people most interested in peace in this region. Because we have lacked peace for so long, we know what it means. We know the cost of it. And why would we be building our country the way you can see with your own eyes, and then have instability to come and destroy it? What kind of people would Rwandans be? So these are, but I think this is a simple matter to resolve honestly. If we only address the root causes and stop just talking. The root cause is simple. Even work with the neighbors, because the neighbors have wanted to help or to work with Congo to resolve these matters that affect them, but also that affect us. But Congo has been hesitant. They don't want this matter resolved. Otherwise, if they had wanted that to be resolved, then they would have welcomed the people who want to work with them to resolve this matter. They only welcome those who are not actually helping them to resolve the matter. They welcome MONUSCO, but yes, MONUSCO does not help to resolve the matter. So the ones who would have helped, because they also have vested interests, meaning neighbors, they are not welcome to do that. They are only turned into enemies. And then there is a lot of politics being played. They always say, oh, the country has been invaded. Invaded Congo. People invade Congo for what? To do what? But Congo is harboring, is home to groups that are armed, that even some of them being armed by Congo to destabilize neighbors. And the case, our own case, is a good example. And then the rest, the media, the human rights, the humanitarian, the UN groups, the different countries, they're just making a noise, oh, M23, M23, for a problem that has those dimensions I've been explaining to you. People are just making a joke of everything and of lives of people, millions of lives of people. So why are these refugees we are having in Rwanda there for over 20 years? Why don't they find a home? The first threat against their lives is their own government, is their own neighbors or people who they are supposed to be living side by side. So I've taken long because to explain your point, I thought to. Because people treat this matter as something they just want, they hope one day they can wish away, or they can use it to wish away other facts and factors around this problem. No, you cannot solve a problem by just wanting to wish it away. That's what has happened, and that's why we are with it for over 2 decades. It's as simple as that. So can we, people, human beings, whether the actors really in the field or those who want to help, and then all of you, the media, can you even find a way you can be helpful also? Instead of just singing some nonsense. All right? I hope, sorry for giving you more than you asked for, but...
Thank you, sir. There's a second question, sir, that he would like you to answer about the relationship between the Republic of Congo and Rwanda.
Sorry?
The second question here asked about the bilateral relationship between the Republic of Congo and Rwanda.
It has been affected by this. Inevitably, it can't be good when we are having this...
Sorry, the Republic of...
Huh?
The Republic of Congo.
Which Congo? A relationship. Why does the relationship come into this? Anyway, we have a very good relationship with with the Congo. When you talked about Congo, I thought it is the usual thing that... but for the Congo, the Republic of Congo, we have a very good relationship. There are no issues. We've been having bilateral agreements, we have MOUs, some of things, the memorandums of understanding, some of the things are being implemented already. Everything is good.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Kagire.
So actually I was answering about Eastern Congo when they asked me about...
No, sir, he asked about Eastern Congo and then...
He did ask about that?
Yes, he's from Republic of Congo.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Excellency. My name is Edmund Kajire. I work for Kigali Today. I'm sorry for taking you back to the usual thing. Your Excellency, in whose interests is it to hold Rwanda responsible for the problems of Congo? And what about the claim that FDLR is a defunct group? Some people say it is done, it is finished. It is used as an excuse for Rwanda's interest in DRC. And why are those supporting FDLR not held accountable by the international community? Thank you.
Well, those who are saying that FDLR is just an excuse, and I think the burden of proof is on them, not me. For me, I have proved, I have said they are there. And I have given an example of how they have attacked Chiniji. You know that story. So I'm not creating it, you know it. I'm talking about, and there are names known of commanders, of people who actually were here and committed genocide a number of them. The names are known by the UN. We have given these names. The commanders are in the field. So for me, I have given what I know. Those who are saying that's not true, it's up to them to now give the proof. For me, I have given the proof of what I'm saying. Those should give their own proof of what they are saying. I cannot be put to task to give proof of what they are saying. That is not true. So it doesn't make sense. Why? Again, they would be, for failure to resolve their problems, the excuse is somebody else. It's common. You can blame somebody else for your problems when you are even the cause or should be addressing them yourself. Then you want to attribute the cause of the problem to somebody else. You are running away from your own problems. I can't, again, be responsible for that. They are human beings. We are in different ways. Some of them are like that. And then who? I mean, you see it. It's always in the papers. People. And why FDLR would be preserved. And because, for example, they say they blame Rwanda for helping M23, according to them. If anyone wanted to be fair, having associated me with M23, it doesn't matter whether how wrong you are or how right you are. Keeping quiet about those who are helping FDLR and arming them and causing the damage and even killing. By the way, we are, in these last weeks and months, this fighting has been going there. You are aware, almost every day we are having refugees crossing the border, running away from Congo because they are being persecuted, they are being uprooted from their homes. We have them, adding to the 70,000 plus others who have had here for over 20 years. So the facts are there to see, to explain what we are debating, but somebody decides not to see that. So if there are some people pretend, like you said, either it is not there, or if it is there, let's. I think some people are interested in perpetuating that problem. It has a long history, again, as I said. Some people have a problem, one, accepting their own responsibility in this tragic history Rwanda has gone through, or the region has gone through. So the victims are the perpetrators. It's a simple way of running away from the problem. The victims, you blame the victims. Then the perpetrators will be free. Otherwise, and it is surprising, some of those people are people who have been associated with that ugly history of ours, but because of who they are, because they think, if you have power and you misuse it, and you think because you are a power, then you can use it any way you want to your advantage. That is a problem. I think that this is happening here. The very people who know the history very well and have even been a part of it are the ones perpetuating that kind of story and using the means they have, the media, the international organizations, So it's really running away from a problem they've been a part of, and then blaming the victim, turning things around. And didn't you see in some way, you see the story at the UN, when people are talking about the history of Rwanda and what happened and so on, and actually the whole UN rallied around that because they understood it, they know it, it's a fact. Some people found it difficult to identify, to say who were the victims in the tragic history of Rwanda. They can't correct themselves to say it by name or by word. Why do you think that? Where do you think that? You think these one or two individuals among hundreds sitting representing countries of the globe in the UN are the ones who were right and the rest were wrong? I mean, it explains itself. If somebody can't just, and somebody has been so closely associated with this problem, but can't find the courage to even say, no, sure, this. And he said, no, these are not the ones who were targeted. Everybody was targeted. That's true. Everybody was targeted, in one form or another, but we are talking about a specific thing. And if you have a problem with that, then it tells the story of what you are to many problems in this world.
Thank you, sir. We'll take one question from Malcolm Webb in Nairobi, working for Al Jazeera, before we go on break and come back for more questions.
You should, before we go, you should ask this lady.
Allez-y, madame.
Yes. Okay. So the one you had given, and then in addition, so I already have two instead of one. Go ahead.
Bonsoir à tout le monde. Je m'appelle Monique Naossi. Je viens du Cameroun. Je suis journaliste à la chaîne de télévision Canal 2 International. Excellence, je voudrais avant tout rendre hommage au leadership que vous incarnez et qui rend fier le peuple africain. Ma question sera en droite ligne avec l'actualité brûlante dans mon pays. Il y a quelques jours, une commission mémorielle a été mise sur pied pour éclairer le rôle qu'a joué la France dans les assassinats des nationalistes camerounais et la guerre pré-indépendance. Le débat qui a cours en ce moment dans mon pays porte sur le choix qu'a fait le président français sur celui qui doit conduire les travaux. Excellence, j'aimerais que vous partagiez avec les 30 millions de Camerounais votre expérience sur le même sujet. Je parle davantage de la période post-génocide. Le process de la commission mémorielle. Comment vous avez procédé? Quel est le profil des acteurs qui ont été déployés pour éclairer l'histoire, davantage le rôle de la France dans cette histoire innommable, inqualifiable qu'a connu votre cher pays, et l'état actuel des relations entre le Rwanda et la France. Ça, c'est la première question. La deuxième question porte sur le leadership des présidents africains pour tirer leur peuple du sous-développement. Quel doit être, selon vous, leur mindset? Je vous ai écouté lors du dialogue national au Moshikirano. Vous demandiez de travailler davantage pour être davantage traités comme des humains. Quel devrait être le profil, le comportement, le mindset des dirigeants africains pour que l'Afrique ne soit plus où elle est et que les dirigeants africains puissent discuter d'égal à égal en toute respectabilité avec les autres leaders du monde. Je vous remercie.
Yeah. First of all, it's important that people, any people, anywhere, faced with a problem, need to, before they go anywhere, to blame anybody else who might be responsible for, they first need to be convince themselves that they have a problem to deal with, it's theirs, they need to deal with it the best way they can, and that actually they have it within themselves to be able to confront any challenge, even if not in its entirety, but a big part of it they can confront and overcome. That's the starting point. So whether it is Cameroon or Rwanda or any other African country or any country anywhere. So then the next step is, how do you go about it? Even allowing others to contribute, including even those who want to mess it up, but then those you have to be prepared to confront them, because in that confrontation, the truth comes out as well, and you deal with it. So you have to have the courage, you have to have the consciousness that this is your problem. Whether you get people supporting you in it or not, you go to confront it, and you proceed like that. So with what you said you are going through with France and this and that, which we went through ourselves, but over time we made a breakthrough, and we even those we were confronting and challenging each other and more or less fighting, over time we find we reach a certain compromise that can allow us space to move forward together. That's our case, how we have done it. I'm not saying that everyone who has similar problems has to deal with it the way we had dealt with our own situation. But there are always lessons to learn from each other. There are a few things you can learn from different situations and apply them and add your own feelings and actions towards moving forward. So for the 30 million Cameroonians, there has to be a way of soul searching from within, confront realities as they are. Don't shy away from that. Some of it is costly. Even when you are right, when you stand up and speak at the top of your voice and you are really saying the right things, sometimes it comes with a cost. You may pay for it, but you should be prepared to pay for it. You must make, it's like doing anything, even the simpler things like doing business. There are risks. You factor in what you're going to do. So this one has even much higher, much bigger risks that you must be prepared to do. So yeah, I'm saying most of this theoretically, but that's what leads to the practice as well. You must understand that from the theoretical standpoint, and then you make choice how you proceed with your journey. So I can't say much about that. We have had our own situation. We can tell people, anyone who wants our situation, how we have overcome it, what we confronted, challenges, people, countries, even powerful countries. We have not always said yes to everything they demand about us. There are certain things we are able to tell anyone, I mean anyone in this world that, well, this is our problem. We are going to deal with it the way we think is right to deal with it, not the way you want me to deal with it. There are those moments. It's not every time. And many times we have done that. We are aware of the consequences. We are aware of the risks. But because of our belief in what is right that we must do for ourselves, we are able to confront what comes with the likely consequences or whatever is related with that. So maybe you, in your country or any other country, it's no different from what you've gone through. You've got to organize, you've got to think properly, you've got to stay the course, you know, tactically or strategically is when you go back and forth, but you stay the course with the thinking of what you want to do. So with the leaders, again, it's the same story. The leaders on our continent. The profile of the actors of... Yeah. Yeah, explain. Sure, I think I understood the explain to me properly. Yeah. Ah, okay. By the way, it was multifaceted. Some were the ones who selected, others were selected by. There are two reports, in actual fact, to do with our situation with France. There are French scholars and others like that who we did not select ourselves. They were mainly selected by France. But had they selected somebody of a profile that we know wasn't going to be useful, we could have easily objected. We could have told France, we said, no, if you are looking to have something of meaning that will have good results, you can't put this person. And therefore, from the beginning, we tell them, no, it will be meaningless. We won't go along. You can go write whatever you want. That will be yours, and it has no consequence to us or to our relationship. But because they also selected people who we thought, according to their profile and what we knew about them, there was no problem, we went along. But we had also established our own process. We chose some international, some renowned people. They were not necessarily Rwandans, but a group that was working with some Rwandans. In fact, it is a renowned American law firm or law meaning the law entities that we agreed they would represent us. And they did a very, very decent job. In fact, from their work and from the work of the process that was carried out in France, there was a lot of convergence, which proved the work done on both sides was very good. There was huge convergence. There were some disagreements or things that, but they didn't take the precedent. Those could be absorbed in the big picture of what was actually agreed. So the profile, therefore, is of people whom you know and it is easy to vet these people. You know their history. And it is not just one person who is going to. So if you have a number of people as a team going to work together and they have different backgrounds you approve, then you are likely to have some good outcome. They can't all conspire and agree to distort the facts of history. Somebody can have influence in pushing things in the wrong direction, but it will be limited. So that is really the profile, how you choose people for who they are, their capacity, what they are known for. It's easy to establish. So, but for the leaders, again, if I go to the leaders question, I mean, we are just all human beings. We do things the way we do them, and sometimes if we have weaknesses here or there or strength, sometimes we can't explain. It's the nature of things. And but there is also the standard of what is known. Whether you decide to ignore it or go along with it, it's your business. Meaning, if you look at the history of Africa, where I have been, it's a shame because they say life on earth, on this planet, started in this place of our great people, the Africans. But thousands and thousands of years after, we are left behind. We are trying to catch up with others. So we therefore must try to understand, even now, currently, the state of affairs. Why is Africa perpetually poor? Why? And yet we have some people you can refer to as great leaders. Great in as far as everything is concerned. But sometimes except what are we doing with and for our people, given the responsibility we have over them? Why do we get diverted and sometimes we have everything we need, but the millions of others can go without anything. And yet at the end of every term we go to them asking them to put us back in positions of responsibility. So, but these Africans are very innocent people. They will go to somebody who has brought suffering to them and vote him again into power. So I don't know whether it is being innocent or something else, but and then the story keeps going. You know, our people, we are okay. But at the end of the day, these poor people who we invite to come to rallies, and they've really had no meal the previous day, even that day. Sometimes you feed them there because you want their vote. You are able to give them food on the rallies. But that is the last they will see until you come back after so many years looking. But I'm not inventing anything. I'm just talking about what I know there is. So if we knew this reality and wanted to deal with it, I mean, we may not deal with it and get it finished in a short time. But why not be on the journey to dealing with that? So if you are going to travel a long journey, 100 kilometers, you start with 1, you are 2, 3, 10, 20, you are going. You don't just jump from the start to finish. So, but at least you must be seen on the journey that you are going somewhere. You can't keep starting and staying with the starting. You can't. Somebody must see you going to the destination. So that's a problem we have on our continent, unfortunately, referring to the question you asked. And I have nobody else to blame except ourselves, the leaders. You can't really blame anybody else. It's we that must be blamed. As I sit here, you blame me as much as you want. I'll take it calmly and go knowing that, yes, maybe what people are saying is right. So, but there is no other way to go about it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir. We'll take one more question before we go on a 15-minute break.
The one you had asked, you had already pointed at somebody.
Yeah, no, it's not here in the room. He sent a question in from Nairobi. It'll appear on the screen.
Okay.
The question is from Malcolm Webb of Al Jazeera. He's asking, protesters in DR Congo are demonstrating this week against the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron, who they blame for supporting Rwanda and thus enabling Rwandan meddling in Congo through M23. What is your response to the protesters? And does Macron's visit to DR Congo threaten Rwanda's interest or your special relationship with President Macron?
After answering it, I hope someday he may tell me where he stands himself, the one who asked the question. Because, again, journalists shouldn't just be asking questions. They must be thinking about what they're asking. And to begin with, I would tell the protesters that it's unfortunate they may not be fully understanding what they are protesting about. They shouldn't be protesting about the visit, because the visit is not the problem. It's not the cause of the problem. So why would you? And then meddling Rwandan meddling in the Congo is not the problem either. So if you demonstrate about Rwanda meddling in Congo's affairs, you are still meddling, you are still protesting against a wrong problem. If you are protesting against the M23, you are really not, your protest is a waste of your time and isn't going to address your problem, because it is not the problem. So my response to the protesters, therefore, would be, I would protest against my government, my leaders. Those protesters, if I had a way of talking to them directly, I said, you're protesting for the wrong things. Start with your president, your government. Those are the ones mismanaging, mishandling your problems. That is my answer to. I thought Malcolm Webb would be understanding that. I still hope he understands that. On the Macron's visit to DR Congo, I know I see no threat or any problem at all. I think maybe he's doing it because he wants to be helpful, by way of advice, by way of supporting, by way supporting the peace that is needed in our region. In Congo, I'm sure France or President Macron has something to offer in that regard. So if he is doing that, why would I feel any discomfort at all? So, two things. One, the protesters, the very good people of Congo protesting, are protesting. Their protest is extremely and very well misguided. They need to take it somewhere else or to be doing something else that they should be doing.
We'll take the next set of questions. Take a question from NTV.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Raymond Mojini from the National Media Group. We had a beautiful chance today to visit Norsken, which prides itself as Africa's biggest tech hub. And the young people there are making some amazing wealth and solutions for Africa. And besides the internet issue, which you addressed at Umushichirano, the young people there also say a lot of the wealth that they create gets repatriated back into Western capitals through capital flight. And from a leadership perspective, how would you advise that African leaders and African economies sort of keep the wealth that is created by their people to benefit their people?
How do they say it happens? What is, because the wealth they create in Rwanda, in Africa, indeed should be, I agree with the assertion that should. It's actually not just meant for one destination. It can be repatriated, can go out of the country, or it should stay here. I mean, that is how the freedom of these innovations and commerce and business, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship, that's how they should work. It's free. But then, of course, what makes it strange is that it takes only one destination to go out. It means there's something lacking in our countries for retention. And that speaks to our private sector and the development of that and the whole ecosystem that shouldn't really be absorbing that and thriving on that, and so that the innovators also thrive based on the conditions in our own countries. That's very true. Therefore, the task for us as leaders, and like we said earlier, our minds should also be here, should allow developments here to accommodate all such inputs, so that we see that the continent, otherwise it will end up being like the old story. There is so much we produce here, but everything just ends up outside, to the point that it's simple things like coffee. We produce coffee, maybe even add value to some extent, those who have tried, and then it goes, more value is added outside, and then it comes back, we drink that coffee. So why shouldn't we be processing everything here? And then we are consumers of coffee, but we don't stop anybody exporting it to those who need it elsewhere. Using that simple example, really it speaks volumes in terms of how we don't grow out of this mentality, and we keep talking so much about what we can do, develop, produce here, but we always end up doing it halfway, and it goes so far away, benefits more other people, and comes back for us to end up paying more for what is originating from us. So we need to break this cycle, and people talk about it, just like you have talked about it. Yeah, there are many in this room who know what needs to be done. And more importantly, the leaders know what needs to be done. And but it keeps happening. And we keep saying what needs to be done, we keep complaining about it, and what links the two is missing. So there's something, I don't know what I can say about it other than joining you and complaining about this happening on our watch. But of course, since Noshken is here, and that means we are part of that mess. But we have one opportunity to have these young people, young innovators, and producing these good ideas and doing something. At least Rwanda, we must play our part, making sure. I'm not going to get involved in stopping things going elsewhere. But why should they all go elsewhere just because I have failed to have even 1% of that? It speaks to my weakness, and we need to address that absolutely. But it's a much wider issue within our system. It's a structural problem that we need to address, and maybe it's a good reminder that we need to address that.
Next question from Berna.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm Bana Namata. I represent the East African. My first question relates to the impact of the war in Ukraine on the African continent and the underwhelming response within the AU and what the AU could potentially have done differently. Specifically, if you look at what's happening now within the global environment, a lot of resources are being consumed and all the attention and money is about Ukraine. And increasingly we are seeing that even the financing that has been available under global financial institutions may be rechanneled to the reconstruction of Ukraine. Against that background, we look at the AU and wonder its capacity to respond to already what we are seeing on the continent as a result of this war. One, food insecurity, inflation, and then, of course, on the other side, debt. Within the context of the AU, you have led reforms before. Could you speak to that challenge? Because it appears the reforms have stalled since then. My second question relates to Rwanda's upcoming presidential elections next year.
The first one was already like 4 questions, I think.
Your Excellency,
it's just the 5th, I think. Okay, go ahead.
Just one final one, relating to the presidential elections upcoming next year. Against this challenging global environment and the region, have you prepared someone to take over these challenges next year? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Why not prepare myself as well? I think someone who needs to prepare himself or herself, and then if they need my support, I give it to them. But it's not a big challenge for me. With time, I'm increasingly prepared to go home and have some rest. So about what happens next year for elections, I'm not so much worried. I'm at peace with myself and with everything that will happen in regard to that next year. So that's not really one of the things that take my time. Right now I'm concerned and keep paying attention to what happens in Congo. Even before I think about Ukraine, I'm starting here, around in the neighborhood. In fact, what affects me from Congo is as much as probably what is affecting us from what is happening far away between the warring sides around Ukraine. But to your first point, the Ukraine situation certainly has turned things more or less upside down. There are so many things going wrong. As of the beginning, the problems there, worse even now, as we speak. Things seem to... And what is happening has a lot of dimensions. It has changed things. It's almost like having a Ukraine problem following or combined with COVID. It has changed the lives of people in the world as we know it, and also the politics, the economy, and many things. To be honest, Africa or the African Union need to think about this very seriously and need to have, as a continent, a strategy and how to deal with many things originating from that situation. But unfortunately, two things will affect us inevitably. One is Africa is marginalized. It has no say at all, if I may say, as to what happens in that part of the world. It's the big players who are, it's Russia, it's Europe, it's Ukraine itself, it's the US, it's China. Whatever they are doing, some of which we understand, other things we don't understand. Africa is just there. I don't know how we can reform that. It's very difficult to use any ideas of reform, how Africa, but we are probably going to be hit hardest. Or already, well, it's hard enough, it's difficult. The countries are beginning to experience hardships originating from the effects of that situation. Directly and indirectly through other factors like you have just mentioned. When the partners we've been dealing with before this crisis, we have been dealing with them in a certain way, already which had its own flaws that we needed to address. But now that their minds are no longer with you, even 5%, their minds are now focused on that very situation you're talking about. Things are bound to certainly get worse. So it's very clear. I can analyze, I can talk about the problem, but to tell you what we need to do about it effectively to address the problem is another issue. Another issue that is difficult. So the second problem is the way we have been anyway all along before as Africa. We're already in a very weak position of how to deal with our own challenges, let alone challenges originating from the outside or with the outside. So for Africa, I hate to believe or see it as somehow a continent floating just on top of the sea that can drown them anytime things go wrong one way or the other. I hate to believe that this is the state of affairs that we need to be thinking about or preparing for, except the preparing is really not there. But at least psychologically we can keep talking about it and preparing. So, as one of the leaders on our continent and the one you said was responsible for reforms, I'm not sure my skills are up to the task to reform the continent facing that challenge, or at least in such a short time. That might be the task of somebody who comes next year. We started by saying, what am I doing about it? So maybe I'd have to support somebody who can do better than me on this in terms of reforming Africa and confronting these challenges.
Thank you, sir. Next question from Albert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Almost on the same topic on Africa. In all your few meetings recently, one thing has come up and that hasn't been really picked up by the press is, or at its right value, the fact that we have mercenaries in Congo. That's the thing, and yet AU is clear on that. But now, as Rwanda, the country with the size that we know, everybody knows the limited means that a country like that has. How do you go into Central Africa Republic, give a hand there, and you go to Mozambique? Maybe if you can share that part. What is the interest? What is and yeah.
Sure. I actually could have been in Congo doing this or similar things if the Congolese had wanted.
What you're doing in Central Africa?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because even more interest in that, because it affects me directly. But we even tried. But the Congolese didn't want. So this is what, again, makes some of the statements or assertions by some people hard to understand. It's as if they see Rwanda as a source of or being a problem to the Congo. Far from that. We have sought to work with the Congo for a long time so that we eliminate these problems. They just refused. So, what can we do? Now, but for Mozambique and the Central African Republic, by African standards, Rwanda has built a decent capacity and understanding to solve with others some of these challenges we face. We face them as a country, Rwanda, but other countries face similar problems on our continent. And then, in the end, there is a link between one problem in one part of Africa with another problem in another part of Africa. So given these capacities we have built while we are dealing with our own internal problems, that's how actually we came to that. We came to that on issues of security, peace, and military, police, and what. We faced so much of these challenges that inevitably we had to invest in building these capacities. Decent. I don't want anybody to exaggerate. We don't have too much of anything, including this capacity. We just have decent capacities to address our problems, but working with others to just increase capacity for them to address their problems. That's how we happen to be in Mozambique. That's how we happen to be in Central African Republic. In Central African Republic, we are there in two forms, actually. One is under the UN, because we were part of the UN mission, a peacekeeping mission in Central African Republic. The other is bilateral. For the UN peacekeeping, when you have sent troops under the UN mission, we have no control over those troops. They do what the UN tells them to do. For that moment, in terms of rules of engagement or all kinds of stuff, Rwanda is disconnected. While under the bilateral arrangement, with the bilateral partner, we decide what to do, and that's what we do. So we have those. There are things that could not be done under the UN mission in Central African Republic, and the Central African Republic government or leader asked us to help and work together under this bilateral arrangement, and that's what we did. And I think we produced some results to an extent of what because if you remember, there was a time, actually, Bangui, the capital itself, and different other places were threatened by rebel armed groups. So I think they were trying to work with the UN to deal with that. In fact, at some point, and they were going for elections. And at that point is when Bangui itself was threatened, almost being taken over by rebels. So I think in Central African Republic, realizing that the government, realizing that they weren't being effective with the mission there under the UN, that's how they asked our support. And we couldn't tell our troops under the UN to switch to that task because that's they are under the UN, not under our command. So we sent their troops whom we could command as by the agreement between us and the Central African Republic. Yes, it is. I'll come to that. Then we went to Mozambique. In Mozambique, we were still asked by the government. After they had also tried many ways and asked people to help, and some people had helped, and it wasn't, and in fact, the rebels who had taken over Cabo Delgado province, by the way, that province alone, just as a province, is 3 times the size of Rwanda. So the terrorists had taken over that place and were threatening, spreading beyond. So sometimes even if you were to get help, if you use these systems, AU, UN, whichever, if you need help now, and it's urgent, it may come minimum after 2 years. So you can imagine somebody who is in intensive care needing intervention of a doctor, you say, hey, you wait. You come, wait, the doctor is on a holiday somewhere, so when he comes, so you can imagine. That's what was happening. So that's how they ask, and then, for example, also for us, once they have come to us like that, to say, you know what, you first go to the AU or the UN and first secure agreement that they will fund our mission. You understand that? So that means it's like as good as saying, I'm not coming. So here you are faced with a choice. Or you tell you know what, put the money here first before we go. I mean, it's like we would be operating like a mercenary ourselves. Just say, put cash here first, and then we come and help you. And the cash is not readily available with some of, I mean, it's like Rwanda. If you wanted to do with us something and we say, no, put money there first. Even if you asked us, we don't have that money to put there first. So what we did was to say, okay, we can go into these details later on. Let's help. Once the house is on fire, it's on fire. You just need to intervene to help put it out to the fire. You don't have time to say, wait. So we say, we will go there, and then with time maybe, some people realize that it costs us so much, or it costs so much, and to be realistic, somebody needs to cover the cost. So this is the way we approached it. As you might have seen already with the European Union, they are actually in the process, final process. We are in the final stage where they are helping, but they are helping Mozambique. So in other words, when they give resources for that operation, they are really helping Mozambique, not Rwanda. In fact, that's where this world is very strange. We have said all the wrongs and rights of what is happening. You know, some people even in that tried to bring issues in the European Union, saying no, but we shouldn't give them money when they are causing trouble in Congo. And then we say, well, but how is the connection? You think you are punishing us, but in the end you are punishing Mozambique. Mozambique has had, at least for us, you are accusing us of doing whatever in Congo that we should be held responsible for. But by doing that, you are punishing Mozambique. What wrong has Mozambique done in Congo? Just by the mere fact that we are associated, they think they can penalize us for our bad behavior in Congo, but you are just sacrificing these Mozambicans who have nothing, absolutely nothing. And this is what we were telling them. We say, look, if you are giving up on Mozambique and you don't want to help. So, but for us then, the good question, we have, by the way, indeed used entirely your resources, our resources. Everything has come so far from the treasury. Our treasury, from our limited, very limited stuff. It is painful, it is costly. It means there are certain things we could have done for ourselves that we are not able to do because we consumed these resources for these missions. But looking deeply into it, it is not a waste of money. It's not a waste of resources. One way or the other, we were going to spend these resources, or they will actually be recovered at some point. Let me give you an example. You are aware there are people who are arrested here who are in prison being put to the courts of law. We actually arrested terrorists here. I think there were 5 or 6, I don't remember, connected with ADF that is in Eastern Congo and these terrorist groups in Cabo Delgado. And they were here. So we have them, they're in prison. Those responsible interrogated them, they revealed everything, and it was just, in fact, the whole idea, even up to now, is for those groups, I don't remember their names, in Mozambique, in Cabo Delgado, to link up with the ADF and continue and link up with through Central African Republic to Sahel region. This is the whole thing. So that we got involved well in advance for this, for something that was going to affect us anyway, I don't think it's a bad thing. It's actually worth our money. So there are many aspects to it, and those are some of them.
Next question, we have a follow-up question from Mozambique.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. President. First of all, I would like to congratulate you for this conversation, openly with the journalists. And we have been receiving information that the holding government of the random ruling part has opened a private security company in Cabo Delgado. So if the country is already helping us to fight against terrorism with official troops, why to open like a private security company in Cabo Delgado? That's the first question. The second one is yesterday our Council of Ministers or our government approved the agreement signed here in Rwanda last year, June, and about extradition between Mozambique and Rwanda. And now we have some voices of civil society saying that this agreement will facilitate the persecution of random refugees in Mozambique. Some of them really have been murdered strangely. I would like your comment on that. And the last question, clearly talking, won't you, Mr. President, really recandidate yourself next year?
Well, security company of, I don't know whether you want me to go into full details of how we work here in our country. It may not, it may consume all our time, but first of all, do you have private security companies in Mozambique that actually should be doing the job? Whatever security company that was hired in Mozambique would be doing, and then these people came and took the job away from them. That's number one. In fact, you could also ask the similar question. You would say, what are your troops doing in our country since we have an army in Mozambique? You could easily ask that. You could easily say, are you in Mozambique? We have the police, we have the army as well in Mozambique. If we hadn't been asked to come, or if we had nothing to do there except maybe create problems for Mozambique, we should have not have been there at all. But we are there. And we are there working with the institutions in Mozambique to solve a problem that through bilateral arrangement we arrived at. So with this security company, therefore, I guess I don't have many details. There are people who get involved with this. They are hired to do a job that the army or the police, both of Rwanda or Mozambique, working together, are not going to do. Not because they are not able to do, but because maybe there is already a big task ahead of them. There are things they are dealing with that they would rather leave this part to private institutions to deal with. So that's how a private company, irrespective of where it belongs, would be in Mozambique to do that. And in fact, I don't know who hired them. They can be hired by government or invited by government to do that. Like the police and the army were invited to do work there. Or they could be hired or invited by private entities in Mozambique. For example, you in that part of Cabo Delgado, you are aware there are so many investments going on. So companies making those investments, huge investments, are free, I guess, should be free to invite whichever company to work with them or for them in a way of business to do that work. Well, I'm sure you are aware. Let me remind you, I heard at the beginning, when our forces had just arrived, they learned there were so many security companies, I don't know how many, that were working there from South Africa. You are aware of that? Yes. So it's not even a strange thing, it's not a new thing. There are companies working from South Africa, maybe from other countries in Southern Africa. And maybe they are still there, actually. Those other companies as well. So I'm explaining this, therefore, in such a way that this is the manner in which they happen to be there. But I'm also trying to say it's not a strange thing that should bother anyone, as long as it is by invitation, by whoever, and by there is a task to do, and maybe they are doing it. Later on, if we find they are not up to the task or they are not doing a good job, I think you have a right to say, what are these people doing here when they are just wasting time? It's like I'm surprised you don't find people, when we were talking about Eastern Congo area, there have been no complaints about MONUSCO being there for 22 years, spending over $35 billion and doing nothing. People are comfortable sitting with them there. So you see how this world is strange. So please, if anybody, any company or entity is from Rwanda and is there in your country doing nothing or wasting your time, please let me know. I need you to complain and I need to give me facts and we deal with it. So that's how the first question is to be answered. Then prosecution of people. I think you talked of people who died in Mozambique as well. People who have been here. Do you remember somebody who used to work for us? He used to be a DG of Berde. What was his name? Tratins. Tratins had he worked here. He had actually come from Angola. He had lived there for many years and so on. You are aware you remember he was killed. That was long ago. He was killed in Mozambique. We have asked people who know what could have happened. We asked from, we had a story that he had actually been killed by those Rwandans who had been living there. He found there, or I don't know who found who there, because he was there for a long time. He came here, worked, and then he decided to go back on his own, because I think he was associated with one of the universities. He was supposed to be somebody in the university. So he was killed. The story we had from my intelligence people was that he was killed by those people. And then 2 other people died after for being said to be associated with the government of Rwanda. And then, I'm still coming. The ones you are talking about are different. The ones I'm talking about are different. So there are those who were actually associated, who were killed because they were saying they were associated with Rwanda. 2 others on top of Turatsians. Then around the same time, 2 others, I think, if not 1 or 2, also died, who were supposed to be associated with these anti-Rwanda groups. You see what I mean? So here you have a situation like this. And what we did ourselves, we had always been in contact with the government and the systems in Mozambique to actually investigate and tell us who killed who in this situation, whether these were people who were anti-Rwanda who were killed, or those actually who were killed because the information had it, they were killed because they are associated with the government of Rwanda. So how do you resolve a problem like that? And it was up to Mozambique and the system to investigate and tell us what happened. Nobody ever told us what happened. So you can find out yourself, or you can investigate and work with the systems in Mozambique and tell us what happened. Up to now, we don't know what happened in those like 4 or 5 cases. Now, if governments work together, therefore, to say, there is a lot going on between us, we are working together and so on. In the whole way of working together, we need to clear the atmosphere. We need to understand this. We need to have a proper and legal process of understanding what is going on. What would you prefer? To leave the problem as it was before, where somebody dies and You just leave it to the media to speculate and say he was killed by so-and-so, or the other one was killed by so-and-so, and leave it at that, and keep going with more killings? Or you want really governments to work together to rein this in? Because already it's an indication that there is a problem. You already have a problem. If you are having people in one country said to be anti another country, and then you have others in the same country said to be anti the other country, what do? Do you leave it at that? Or you find some way of even allowing a discussion to be held so that this is reined in? I think that's whatever you ask in that regard is supposed to address this problem. If there is another way of addressing it, let us know. Then you're asking whether I will be a candidate next year. To be honest, I don't know. But when I say I don't know, it means it is either way. It could be, maybe it won't be. So go home with 50-50.
Next question from Kenzie.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Kensi, nkaba ndi umunyamakuru wa TV na Radio 1. Ikibazo cyanjye kiragaruka muri Kongo ko ni twese turahangayitse nk'abanyarwanda. Umugaba mukuru wungirije w'ingabo za Kongo, General Chiwewe Aprito Chiko, yitangarije yuko amaze iminsi azenguruka mu bihugu bya SADC kugira ngo intambara y'u Rwanda bayitsinde. Kandi wumvise n'amagambo amaze iminsi avuga y'abari perezida nubwo babifashe nk'aho ari imikino, yivugiye ku giti cye yuko ari wowe kibazo cy'umutekano muri Afurika. Wareba ibyo abandi bose babajije, nkabona yuko tuyifata nk'aho ari ugukina, ariko wenda bikaba ari na seriye. Ese twaba twitegura yuko tujya guterwa na Kongo kuko banavuze ko bashaka kutwanexa tukaba intara ya 8? Murakoze mwadusuza kuri ibyo mukaduhumuriza cyangwa se mukaduteguza tukitegura.
Reka mpere kubahumuriza nicyo kiri important, nicyo cyangombwa, nicyo gikuru. Ibyo ubwabyo ntaho mbona bishingiye, ntaho mbona byashoboka. So nushaka uryame usinzire wicuye wiyongere, ibyo ntabwo ari ikibazo. Ibyo umuntu umwe yaba yaravuze muri Kongo, ibyo afite uburenganzira bwo kuvuga ibyo ashaka kuvuga, ntabwo bivugwa byose biba ari ukuri, cyane cyane iyo bivugwa kuri iki kibazo cya Kongo, bikivugwa n'abanyekongo bo muri leta. Ariko icyo nzi ni uko SADC ishobora gushaka gufasha ahubwo nayo mu gukemura ikibazo cya Kongo. Ntabwo nibwira rero ko gushaka gukemura ikibazo cya Kongo, nubwo abenshi bashobora bashaka kugikemura bakagikemura nabi, cyangwa bakaba bagira ibyo bakora bizana intambwe guterwa mu gukemura ikibazo. Ntabwo nibwira ko bizagana mu kugirira nabi u Rwanda bafashije Kongo. Ntabwo mbibona, mu kubona kwanjye ntabwo mbibona. Ariko icyo nakubwira ni uko nka bya bindi, iyo udashaka intambara urayitegura. Iyo ushaka amahoro witegura intambara. Rero ubwo twe dushaka amahoro, ibyo kwitegura twiteguye kera. Sorry? Niruterwa.
Citizen?
Ibyo ntibabimbareho. Ibyo uvuze ntibabimbareho.
Excellency, my name is Wahiga Mwaura from Citizen TV in Nairobi, Kenya. 2 quick questions for you. The first one is on the challenges in the DRC. What is your advice today or your message to those overseeing the Nairobi-led peace process, former President Uhuru Kenyatta and of course the host President William Ruto? What's your message to them in terms of what needs to be done to make sure that peace process actually works? That's my first question. My second question to you is, with a presidential election looming, and you've had questions on the same in regards to that. Now, Rwanda has done very well in ticking the right development metrics, healthcare, access to finances for the people, technology, and so much more. And the ratings are not just by local institutions, but international institutions as well. But there's one metric that Rwanda continuously scores low in, and that is on human rights, political freedom, and press freedom as well. Your Excellency, with that election in mind, does it concern you that until today your country still suffers a contradiction of very good rankings by international agencies on one end, but very poor rankings on the human rights front on the other? Does it concern you? And if it does, what are you doing about it? Thank you.
Yeah. Starting with that last one, is there really a situation where you have one and not the other? And what would be the meaning? Because on one hand, on all human indexes, you are scoring fine. What does that mean? Human, it's already human. You are giving people more health, you are giving people more food, they are not starving, you are giving them security, you are giving... And it's not, by the way, this is it, it's not dishing it out to them. They are part of it. These things happen because they are involved, they are part of it. There is security because they are part of it. There is this production and this because they are part of it. It can't be by a leader or leaders and then minus the people. Then you don't get there. Everything you mention is about accountability, fight corruption. Well, sometimes people associate corruption with freedom. You're even free to be corrupt. You are free to steal. You are free to... Now here we are saying, no. You're not free. You are accountable, especially when it comes to leaders. When you are holding resources in your hands for the people, and the only reason you have resources in your hands, this is not your money. It is the money from the people and for the people. So if you steal it and do nothing for them, the courts will take care of you. We insist on that. And of course, because of that, by the way, we have produced so many people who are sort of disgruntled, and the number of them, some have been even escaping the country and going abroad. And somebody has a file here in court for stealing everything that was meant for the people he was leading. And then they go to London, meets the media, and it is everywhere in the Guardian and everything. Oh, this person is being persecuted by Kagame regime. This is the common thing. But this man is just a thief, absolute thief. So, in other words, some of these things, the way they have happened, and that is the narrative you are referring to. There is a narrative of progress on one hand, which I said, it can't happen simply. You will tell me where you know it has happened. But things are moving so well for people and by these people, but then there is everything lacking in the system about their freedom, about their human rights. I just don't understand. The good thing about all this nonsense being said, unfortunately, it's not like mathematics. You add up things, you multiply, you do this, and there is unexpected, what you get out if you get it right. It's what it is. But here, you add up things, and then you end up with some result that is dependent, that is subjective, that is dependent on the judgment of a journalist or a human rights person or somebody, even when the things don't add up. So, in fact, we have had, by the way, a lot of discussions with these institutions, with the countries where these people are based. And we have a list of people. And what makes it simple and clear, it's, for example, what I've just said, people who have gone after committing crimes here, including those who killed people here, by the way. They go there, they play a political card, a freedoms, a democracy card. And they say, no, you see, I am here, I'm seeking asylum. And they say, because they are being persecuted. You are a murderer who killed people here, and then you are being persecuted? How? And we show it to these people who make such a noise. We say, okay, you relate to these things. This person, this is the file that was worked on, completed. It is waiting for prosecution. And the person is here, he told you lies that he escaped, from the police. They were looking for him. They were going to kill him because he said something, or because he's fighting for democracy. So how do you marry these two things? How do you explain it? We have a case. In fact, it's one case, but involves people. There are people who left here like 20 years. This case that has been going on in the UK of genociders who know. Sorry? Yes, who are known, well known. The victims are here. The people whose families were killed by these guys are here. Everybody knows the story. But these guys have been in the UK protected, and they went into politics and started talking about how, this Tutsi government, they are calling people, telling people to shut up, they do this. This case has been going on for 15 years. And we asked the government. We said, okay. They first said, we can't send you these cases because we requested. We said, you give us these people, we go and prosecute them in the court of law. And they said, no, we can't give them to you. We are not sure about your courts, your judiciary, and so on and so forth. We said, okay, you have right to have doubts about us. Let us give you the files, and you try these guys in your courts. And they can't do that either. So you have there are many cases like this. And we tell these people, but what do you want us to do? What we are saying is that these people have cases to answer. I'm now away from that case. There are others elsewhere. We say, you don't believe us. That's okay. You have a working judiciary in your country, your developed country. Let us give you what you are saying, what we are saying, You have these people in your hands. Try them against this. You find them innocent, let them go. We shall know that you have found them innocent, and that's okay. They can't do that. Why? Because some of them exactly want to keep that story running of how bad everything is here. But the simple question I asked was, surely you can't say there is a whole list of things that we are getting right, and they are showing, and then you say, but. How do I explain that? Because these things don't add up. Now, are there things that go wrong here in the country? Absolutely. That one, I can't say that nothing goes wrong here. But where does it not go wrong? And, or if I were to ask the same people who make judgment, or if you were to ask me, say, these people are saying, Rwanda, you are like this, you are like this. I say, okay, guilty, as charged. Do you want me to show you what is worse these same people are accusing me are doing? That does not happen because of where I started from earlier. It's like, do as I say, don't do as I do. This saying is very old, it's not by me. So that's what is involved in what we are talking about. Every single day. You tell us, oh, you are doing this. Sometimes, by the way, you are supposed to believe what they are saying about you. You're not even supposed to question or protest. But at the same time, you are talking about freedoms. But if you don't allow me the freedom to answer back or to say you are telling lies, or actually what you are saying is not true, then who is violating freedoms more than the other? You are exactly doing what you are denying me to do. You don't want me to explain my case. And then you turn it around actually and say, you see, Rwanda does not want or does not like criticism. But you don't like criticism because when I'm explaining to you, then you are labeling me as not liking criticism. But you are exactly depicting me in that light because you think I shouldn't be answering back or asking or raising questions about what you are saying about me. That is denying people freedom. This freedom, democracy, people have turned it into something, a subjective tool, just to use. You know, if you have a voice, you have a media, you have power, you have money, then you are controlling this. Everybody else is supposed to accept what you are saying there and what you are saying they are doing, whether it is right or wrong, whether it is true or not. This is the problem. I'm glad you actually raised this question because it's been there for many years. It is still there as we speak. Because if you hear some, it's not all of them. I think many understand. What they say about Rwanda, they think this is the worst country you have on earth. But then sometimes, when in another circumstance, they are telling a good story about Rwanda. Say, oh, Rwanda thinks, oh, is this. So how do these two contradict? In fact, the contradiction is more in that than what you stated earlier. The contradiction is, how do you say this on this side, so much is wrong and bad, but on the other, there is so much that is good, that is happening. So, but these things that are good are happening by who? It is the same people you are saying. I mean, somebody is not hungry, a family is not hungry, they are able to send children to school to study, then they have security, nobody tampers with them. But you say, except they lack the freedom. Which freedom? Freedom. Somebody is already having freedom to live, to be there. You saw the Rwandans live now on average up to 60 something close to it. Why would the country invest in that only to deny the same person? Does it really make sense? Does it add up? It doesn't, for me, it doesn't add up. But by the way, the same complaints that are being raised about Rwanda now were not even a fraction of it was raised against the government that murdered 1 million people here. Meaning, they had the freedom. They had everything, maybe. But really, the Rwanda of 30 years ago, did it have freedom? Did it have democracy? Did it? Now, sometimes I say, for lack of a better way to say it, there are two things. One I am blamed for, another I am praised for. Okay? These are two things. Surely this can't be worse than a situation that doesn't have either. You know that? You understand what I'm saying? There are people who may, as I know, in fact, there are many people who have no freedoms and the democracies we're talking about, and have nothing of that I'm being praised for. So who is worse off? At least I have one. Then I can keep struggling to deal with the other one and improving on it, and fine. But at least I have secured one. But really, you have a situation where, which we know, you and me and anybody else, nothing we are talking about exists in this place. But surprisingly, because of maybe how they are used to serve certain interests of those who set the standards, they may end up actually being praised. I wouldn't name names here, but I have names in my mind. I could give example, but I won't say it. I won't do it. People, even other people look and say, what do you think you are doing? You have so much, but in the end, it has not transformed the people either way, either by development or by these subjective things we are talking about. But yet, the resources are incredible. But those ones, nobody will talk about them, because the same people who set these standards and define us are in between helping themselves with these resources. This is how the world seems to operate as I understand it. You had asked another... Sure. That's the one I was missing. We have had many conversations, including the conveners of the peace process, whether it is in Kenya or even in other places. People cannot afford just to do politics with anything, or even do diplomacy. You don't want to hurt somebody's feelings by telling them something they ought to do, but that they don't want to do. So if you are a convener of this process, you can afford even to be disliked. You must be prepared for that, meaning you should be prepared to tell somebody what they don't want to hear, but that is right to do. And that will actually maybe lead to improvement in the situation or help solving the problem. That's one big message. And so the part of that is we have to be practical. We have to, for example, when we are talking about considering the root causes of any problem we are dealing with, it's indispensable. You can't solve the problem otherwise. You can't avoid the root causes. Otherwise, how will you solve the problem? I think, but so far, in my view, I have no complaint as to regards the people who are trying to help in this problem, be it Kenya or the Rwanda process. I think some truth has been coming out the right way. The main problem now is how do we move to another stage so that we are not talking about the right things and move to doing practically, and that's where we were with the Nairobi process, when the East African Community Regional Force was being created. It was actually one to go in, help, have a ceasefire, bringing the armed groups, the warring sides, to say, what are you fighting for? Let's listen to your grievance and address that. But when it came to that, it's the country that was being helped that has made it impossible. And the reason is simple, why how they are making it impossible. All along, for them, they have completely different interpretation of what needs to be done. For them, it was like this force, or whichever force that is supposed to be there, is supposed to help us, and then a lot of definitions about sovereignty. We are a sovereign this, we are a sovereign that. So you will come work with us to help us fight our enemies. They call their own people their enemies. So that was a terrible misconception that has created problems. So the East African Community Regional Force, according to DRC, is supposed to come help them fight M23, the other armed groups, and then what, to what end? No, the issue is not, is actually a lot of fighting has happened. We don't need more fighting. We need less. So if you want people to help you to fight, no, we need people to help you to actually stop fighting and then move to a political solution. So I think the message has been clear. We will discuss this with those responsible. They understand it. They have tried whatever they can. But I think helping people is also sometimes is difficult. You may help somebody who doesn't need your help or who thinks you can only help them in a completely different way that doesn't provide the solution. And that's where people get stuck.
Thank you, sir. With your permission, we may take 3 more before we end. We start with Ghana.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Martin Esiedudate from Ghana. My question would come on the back of the fact that Ghana currently is going to the IMF or is seeking IMF bailout. It looks as though post the COVID and Russian-Ukraine war, a number of countries and economies have suffered. But steadily, it looks as though Rwanda has had a steady rise and has not gone back for that kind of assistance. In your estimation, what can other African countries do in line with the continental free trade area, which is a concept many are working towards, to ensure that we have enough resources to help ourselves so we do not keep running to these Bretton Woods institutions? And secondly, as an Arsenal fan, knowing that Arsenal is doing well this season,
yes,
I'm sure,
I am.
Yeah, I know that you're looking forward that they win the league. With the partnership Rwanda has with Arsenal, how has that benefited the country? And with the Visit Rwanda campaign, what kind of impact are you looking at the country benefiting if Arsenal does win the league? Thank you.
Now, the first one, really I want to be clear. We haven't succeeded in everything we have tried to do for ourselves. We succeed in some, fail in others, and keep trying. And I don't, sometimes I don't feel comfortable to say things as if it's a prescription for what others can do to remedy their problems. I want to start by saying that. And with Ghana, that we are close to, we have good cooperation, there are many things that we do with Ghana. And Ghana is a great country, has huge resources, human and other resources. So I'm sure, therefore, Ghana is capable of, based on these two, is able to do many things for itself, and maybe some input from outside, like we all need support from different global institutions or partnerships with countries or so on and so forth. But all along, not taking things for granted that, yes, we can do this and that by ourselves, and just an input here and so on from others. That's exactly the point when we created the CFTA. It was to aggregate our capacities, our possibilities, our potential on the African continent, so that really proportionately people benefit, depending on what they have, on their size, on so many things. And there are things that are more or less simple and straightforward to make it, to do a CFTA work and help us. And that we start with simple things like connection with each other, countries that have signed up to it, communication, freedom of movement, of people, goods, and trading with each other, and increase it. We have repeated so many times, we see the rest of the world, the different continents, these regional trade levels are much higher. You go to Asia, you go to Europe, in Africa, and this costs us a lot. Absolutely, it directly feeds into how and what a low base we are at in many of these things. So these, operationalizing CFTA is huge, and every country has a role to play, has something to do, and fortunately the Secretariat, the headquarters are in Ghana, the capacities there. So we need to make it work for us, and we connect with each other. So I think if more of that was done, then we should be seeing our countries needing less of begging and asking people to help out, to bail us out, and so on and so forth. There's no question about it. So we need to do more of that and stop being dependent on. So I maybe just stop at that. For Arsenal, we have had a very good partnership. It gets better every time. In fact, our people responsible for these investments calculate and see. They can easily tell how many people got to know about Rwanda because of this, how many, based on that, actually came to Rwanda, how many, based on that, actually invested in Rwanda. It surpasses by far what we invested in this partnership ourselves. Invested something in the partnership and getting more by a big factor. We get more from that. Of course, again, cynically, these prejudices we are talking about earlier, some people are saying, no. Even some people you would think really, and most of these people who behave like this, it's not because they don't know or they lack anything or they don't have the intellectual ability to, no. It's these biases, these prejudices that operation. So they say, no, Rwanda is wasting money. Who told you? I'm the one who knows what we put in, I know what we are getting out, but you want to tell a story for me. and you want people to believe you more than they can believe me. So, of course, the better we meaning Arsenal, the better we do, we perform towards getting the ultimate prize, it brings more dividends. Absolutely. So imagine in next, towards this season, if we become the champions, I'll be rushing to the bank to collect some money. So yeah, that's how it works. We have the same arrangement, by the way, with PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, and well, there are variations, but more or less the same principle. And we are having another one coming up with another famous football team. So when you see us going one after another, after one and another, we know what we are pursuing. It's not to lose money. Asante san. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Take a question from Scovia.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa.
Will you join me as a fan of Arsenal?
Unfortunately, no.
Bad news. You are what?
Manchester United.
Okay, like one of my sons is, yeah.
Murakoze nyakubahwa perezida wa repubulika, nitwa Scovia Mutesi, ni umwanditsi w'ikinyamakuru Mama urwa Gasabo. Mfite ibibazo bibiri. Abarimu uyu munsi barashima ko bongerewe umushahara nyuma y'igihe kinini, ariko muri iki cyiciro n'abandi bakozi batandukanye ba leta harimo abakora mu bijyanye n'ubutabera, abacamanza, abanditsi n'ubushinjacyaha. Uyu munsi nabo bavuga ko bagowe no kuba umushahara ukiri muto. Abaganga nabo bahembwa make, ariko hakaba harimo n'abadahemberwa diplome bafite. Nyakubahwa rero baravuga ko ari we bahanze amaso nk'uko n'abarimu uyu munsi bishimira ko bongejwe umushahara. Murakoze.
Yeah. Ubundi ntabwo ari ukuri kose, kuko abo bandi nabo hari igihe actually twigeze kureba icyo twakora kugira ngo hagire ikiyongera ku buzima bwabo cyangwa icyo bahembwa. Harimo for example nk'abaganga, niyo umuntu ataguhaye amafaranga yongera ku mushahara, akaguha uburyo bushobora gutuma wongera icyo ushobora gutahana nyuma y'ukwezi, ni nko kuyaguha. So byarabaye mu baganga, byarabaye n'ahandi aho twagiye dushakisha uburyo icyo batahana cyangwa icyo babona cyazamuka kurusha icyo bari bafite. Ibyo rero birahari nk'ihame kuri leta gushakisha. Nanone ibintu ntabwo byahinduka umunsi umwe, ntibihindukira hamwe byose kubera amikoro. Nanjye bavuga ni icyifuzo, ariko iyo bigeze ku kuri, ku nyakuri, usanga bitabaye nk'uko umuntu yabyifuzaga, kubera aho tuvana ntabwo haduha icyo ari cyo cyose twifuza cyangwa twasezeranije. Icyo navuga rero, ibyo uvuze nibyo. Ku barimu twaragerageje, hari amaze gukorwa, ntibizagukanye. Buriya hashobora gushira amezi 6 nabo bagatangira kuvuga batari ko dukeneye ibi. Ntabwo bijya birangira. Ariko icyo navuga, nibura hari icyo twakoze gifite intambwe cyabateje. Mbere y'uko twongera gusubira ku barimu, ndibwira ko tuzaba twakoze ibishoboka kugira ngo n'abandi noneho no secteur zindi bashobore kugira icyo babona, nk'abaganga, nk'abacamanza, abakora mu sector ya justice. Birashoboka. I mean, ntabwo ariko nasezeranya ngo uyu munsi bizaba byarangiye, kuko naba mbeshya. Tureba envelope uko ingana, uko imeze, aho dukwiriye kuba dushyira, ariko turabitekereza. Icyo navuga ni uko ntabwo tubitekereza kuri bamwe gusa cyangwa tubyifuriza bamwe tutabigeza ku bandi. Nabyo rero ndibwira ko bizabageraho byanze bikunze. Tuzakora ibishoboka byose. Leta muri rusange, iyo mikorere niko imeze. Ubwo tuzakomeza dushakisha aho twavana, ahashoboka, hamwe twaba tuhagaritse wenda hafite uko hameze neza, duteze imbere ahandi.
Thank you, sir. We take the last question from Zambia.
I thought this was the last.
Sorry, it was last one.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Your Excellency. Thank you so much. My name is Damasio Piri from Zambia National Broadcasting Corporation in Zambia. First and foremost, I would like to thank you, Your Excellency, that I found myself here in Rwanda. It's been my dream to come and see Rwanda.
Was your first time?
Yes, my first time, and thank you so much. My question is on the bilateral talks and agreements that you've had with your counterpart from Zambia, His Excellency, the President of Zambia, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. Last year in April 2022, you signed some agreements. The question is, how far have you gone in terms of implementation of those agreements that you signed between Zambia and Rwanda? Thank you.
To begin with, we have a very good relationship with Zambia. Rwanda and Zambia relate very well, both in history, but more so now under the current government and the leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema. It was my pleasure to visit last time I did, and indeed a number of issues were discussed, including how we strengthen and move further our relationship in a mutually beneficial way, bringing people together and increasing economic and other useful activities between the two countries. So those agreements have been followed upon. They're in the process. People, institutions on both sides have been talking and identifying the best way to move forward and on what in terms of priorities. So what we can do is to try and accelerate that. Otherwise, I think it's on the right path. And greetings to people back home in Zambia.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for your time and taking over 20 questions. We wish you a good evening.
We did take 20?
We took more than 20 seconds.
Yeah. Thank you.